So chapter 7. Belief, family, and rising from the ashes. Some moments in my life stay forever vivid. One Christmas at Thursford, I actually remember this every Christmas. I remember sitting, I was surrounded by music and lights. It was a fantastic show, dancing girls, organists, brilliant show. All my family were there, wide-eyed my kids were with wonder. And yet I sat there hollow with worry, not really a part of what was going on at all. Everyone else was present, but my mind was shackled to the factory and its fragile finances. That contrast, their joy against my fear, seared into me. I realized that if I left it unchecked, that anxiety robs you not just of sleep, but of the very moments you long to remember. Around then, I bought my first grown-up car, a Rover 800 Fastback in British racing green. It looked the part, even if the grey velour seats weren't the tan leather I really wanted. It gave me presents as I visited retailers across the UK, Belgium and Holland. But behind the facade, the truth was harder. Multi-York now accounted for 70% of our turnover. And while Charles Pugh ran it, I felt secure. But after he sold half the business to his friend, an ex-city man, the orders slowed, payments dragged, and the walls began to close in. And that was Christmas. And after Christmas, the truth landed. They wanted to buy us, and they were squeezing us out to make it the only option. I agreed. I was young, seemed like a good idea, and it turned out to be a good idea, actually, even though I didn't get any money, basically, but I got a job paying more than double what I was earning, more responsibility, a seat on the board at Multi-York, etc. The pressure shifted, but it didn't vanish. I remember well the boardroom. Here I was, this young boy, not yet 30, late 20s, very entrepreneurial. The only one there other than Charles Pugh, who didn't like board meetings and so was very rarely present. The only one there had actually built a company. So the price of the double salary, etc., was listening to polished nonsense from directors more than twice my age. They buried the reality of what was happening under reports and graphs and variances and just percentages and statistics up the yin-yang. Thanks to Emma, who still worked at the factory, I had the real numbers. And one meeting, after hearing the upholstery figures, twisted beyond recognition, and then my own figures from what had been my factory, numbers I knew well, I cut in. Before we debate variances, can someone please tell me the basics? What were our sales this month? How much did they cost to produce? What were our overheads and what was our profit or loss? And how much cash have we got in the bank today? And where does our order book stand? No one could answer. No one could answer that most basic, most important question for what was still a relatively small business. Papers shuffled, and then I pointed to the report from what was my old factory. you've counted the same batch 3 times. That doesn't make it a miracle. It makes it bad maths. You're overstating your turnover by a multiple of 3. The truth very rarely wins, friends, and I was soon edged out. I've always been hopeless at politics, far, far too direct. So I was politely reassigned to showroom openings. But that experience taught me leadership isn't earned in meetings. It's proven on the shop floor, proven by results. After and during opening lots of new showrooms, and I enjoyed that, they sent me to sort out the polish shop. The polish shop was separate to my old business. It was based in Thetford. The morale was low and standards were even lower. Rework was at 40%. I gathered the men together. Always my way, just be direct. I said, we're overmanned by nearly half. I'm going to be watching who turns up, who actually cares about this job and what we turn out, and who wants to change. If you're with me, I can promise you we'll build something you can be proud of. 4 weeks later, a third were gone. Rework dropped to 5%, productivity doubled. That Christmas, I was the only director to receive a hamper. Not because I was liked, but because my department was the only one making any money. That taught me again, clarity, fairness. And when I was changing the polishing shop, I didn't do it sitting in the office. I did it down there on the shop floor with the guys, doing the polishing, doing the work, putting the hours in, because that is the only way to pull things along. You don't need to stay there all the time, but when you're starting, when you're making change, you need to be on the coalface, proving that you're not just some suit that comes in there talking and all the rest of it, that you know what you're talking about and you won't take bullshit. Cheryl and the children. It was around this time that I grew close to Cheryl. We'd known each other, but now we were working side by side. She on upholstery and showrooms, me on cabinetry in the showrooms. Both Aquarians, both strong-willed, both stubborn. Sparks quite often flew, but beneath them was a respect, a recognition of somebody else who didn't take any bullshit, who knew what they were talking about, who knew their job, and who cared, who genuinely just wanted the company to succeed. I'll never forget seeing Cheryl in a board meeting. Actually, it was a retail meeting, not a board meeting. And she was in tears after being undermined by politics. And I felt a pang of protectiveness. And from there, our friendship grew into something deeper. Leaving Emma, Amy and James was agonising. It tore me apart. Yet Cheryl's love softened some of that pain. She welcomed Amy and James into her heart and later into our home with Andy and Laura. Over time, they came to love her too. The children were my anchor. They weren't side notes to my life. They were the rhythm of it. Weekends meant Amy and James arriving with overnight bags, laughter filling the house, muddy walks, caravans hitched to discoveries, and the chaos of 4 children tumbling across the fields at Scrapby Hall. On Saturday mornings, I'd have them help in the garden just as I had as a kid to earn their pocket money, and they spent the morning with me, raking leaves if it was autumn time, just helping pull weeds, cut grass, move fallen down trees, whatever. Just jobs that they could do and could get some satisfaction from, but also to show that work produces reward. There isn't anything for nothing. That's an old-fashioned way of being now, I know, and my kids tell me that. I guess it was more play than work at the garden, but it sent a good message. And looking back, those noisy, ordinary days were the most extraordinary of all. They were a gift. And they were a gift that if I had my time again, I would spend more time doing. Instead of coming home at 7, seeing the kids just going to bed. Yes, I saw them at weekends, but increasingly I was still on the phone as our retail grew, and I missed so much of their childhood. Away on holidays, dad's on the phone, speaking to the office, making sure things are done, answering questions. It's such a precious time. And you think it's going to last forever when you're there, and it doesn't. And they are the most magical days. The accident. Choosing gratitude. One night, with the children strapped in the back, I was blinded by the full beam glare from some headlights. The other driver was parked. I was heading in this direction. The other driver was parked, actually, as I now know, off the road, pointing towards me. So as soon as I came up to his lights, which happened to be on a sharp left-hand bend, I did what I normally do. Whilst I'm blinded momentarily, I went to go close on his left-hand side. We drive on the left in the UK. Only he was off the road, and I didn't realise that until I became alongside him and there was a bloody great tree and a hedge in front of me. In an instant, as happens in those situations, I thought, well, I can either try and make the corner. Good chance I'll either roll or go sideways into the tree. Not good. Or I can scrub the speed off as much as possible, let the car take the impact, and it'll be fine. I guess we hit at under 20 miles an hour, not strong enough for the airbags to go off. I think the Rover had an airbag in the wheel. I can't remember anyway. Nothing went off. And there was the bumper was dented. I think one of the kids was in the front in their seat, or booster it would have been then. I think this shoe came off and went in the footwell, and that upset them. And so we didn't have a whiplash, we didn't have anything. So we climbed out shaken and unhurt. But later, when the adrenaline had drained, my hands were shaking. And that moment left a permanent line in me. Safety, family, and gratitude came before everything else. Building by hand, the barn. Cheryl and I moved into a derelict. Derelict's probably an optimistic description of it. Black clad barn. And we lived in an ancient, we bought the oldest, most ghastly mobile home, because anything we spent on that couldn't be spent on the barn. And basically, Cheryl had left everything with her husband. I'd left everything with Emma. We didn't have a lot of money. We were really working on a shoestring, and most of that job, as happens anyway when you're young, was brought about by the work that we put into it. But we had to buy materials. So we lived in this ancient mobile at the back in the garden. I fitted every window, every door, laid the skirtings, hung the stairs, reclad the barn's timber walls. And when the roofers cut corners, which they did, I climbed up and relaid the tiles myself, therefore learning how to roof. Cheryl tiled floor after floor, bathroom after bathroom, and painted until her arms ached. Together we worked, young and determined, building a life as much as a home. And by the time Andy was born, the inside was finished enough for us to move in. Heat in the radiators, a roof over our heads. That felt like success. Holidays with the kids. The cars marked seasons, not just journeys. In the first Discovery, a blue one, no AC, we headed for France. Andy was still tiny, strapped into his seat. Content as the miles rolled by, the Jeep we'd rented was filthy and haunted. Doors slammed on their own, footsteps echoed where no one walked, and by the third night the atmosphere was so heavy that at 3 a.m. we gathered the children, well, and Andy, because he was the only one with us then, bundled them into the car and left. To Andy it was an adventure. To us it was a relief to find a quiet hotel by the coast where the dawn felt like a blessing. In the second discovery, with its air conditioning, we towed our new caravan to Yorkshire. The children loved it, all 4 of them. Evenings meant card games around the little caravan table, the patter of rain on the roof, and the sound of muffled giggles from sleeping bags long after bedtime. Mornings brought damp grass, cereal from plastic bowls, and 4 pairs of muddy boots piled by the door. Somerset came next. Amy and James joined us, and the 4 children ran together down country lanes, chasing each other until they collapsed in heaps with laughter. Cheryl treated them all the same. No stepsisters and brothers, no half-sisters and brothers, just children loved equally. Cornwall, which is my home, was beautiful and brutal. We pitched the caravan overlooking the sea near Mevagissey. The sound of waves carried through the night. But the Range Rover, brand new, 3 months old Range Rover, failed immediately. I spent days shuttling back and forth to Truro while the family tried to salvage the holiday. The stress brought on a savage eczema attack. The only one of my life, touch wood. Yet I can still picture the children, buckets and spades in hand, laughing as they ran down to the golden beaches. Their joy softened the pain. And then there was Le Mans. Not with the children, but with my brother-in-law, Andrew. The Jaguar XJR purred along the French autoroutes. It was my first really fast car. And back in the day, this was an original XJR tuned by TWR. That felt the business. So comfortable, so quick. And luxurious. It was converted sovereign. When I returned home, at Le Mans, it's never happened to me before, and we were regular visitors then and continue to be regular visitors for a number of years. It was the only year we were waved through at every gate, into every parking area and all the different areas at Le Mans. We just waved through. No money to pay. I don't know what was happening, but doors opened. And so I returned home. The children crowded round wide-eyed as I described the thunder of the racing cars. They couldn't quite imagine it, but their awe made the story larger than life. The cars carried us, but it was the children's laughter, their muddy knees, their wide eyes that gave those journeys their true meaning. Scrapby Hall, brave or mad? When Scrapby Hall came up for sale and I said I wanted to buy it, people said I was mad. It was fire scarred, had dry rot, a collapsing roof, but I looked at it and I saw possibilities. Now, Scrapby Hall was 14,500 square feet. So for those of you that work in meters, that's about 1,450 square meters. It was bloody big. 4 floors, enormous number of bedrooms and servants' quarters, and a pond that was more of a mini lake, ornamental pond. It was absolutely stunning. It was the grounds that really did it for me. Such a beautiful place. The bones of it were so fabulous. So half my friends said I was brave and the other half said I was stupid. I knew. And Cheryl, bless her heart, believed in me. She wasn't sure, I can tell you. She was very unsure that it was a good move. But I could see what it was going to be. And by that stage, I was a furniture designer. I did interiors. I could visualise. Cheryl could also visualise, so that helped a lot. We lived 6 weeks before we moved in. And when I say moved in, we moved into what was really the dining room. And that became our bedroom, dining room and living room. It was a big room. For instance, the bay windows, you could fit a dining table in just one of the bays. It was a big room. But we basically lived in there and we had a makeshift kitchen and a bathroom on the ground floor. And then upstairs, we had a temporary plasterboard wall, just closing it off. And also the living room, which would have been the seat of the fire, was just an earth floor, no windows. And you could stand in it, or actually in the cellar beneath it, and look up 4 floors to the sky. So it needed quite a lot of work. But we were able to move in after 6 weeks in the caravan. And that had been after nearly a year of ripping out, making good, and, really didn't seem to be going anywhere for such a long time. And at times I did think I might have gone mad. The grounds bloomed in spring with bluebells and snowdrops. And the children raced through the fields. Not knowing what to do with the space, I opened our first showroom at the back of the hall in what had been the ballroom overlooking the ornamental pond and the farm office and various other rooms. It was a big showroom and inglorious rooms, but we had no use for them. We already had more space than we needed, and it was a good place for a showroom. I worked on Saturdays and mostly Sundays selling furniture from there. Cheryl would bring me lunch down, and if someone was visiting, they'd come and see me down there, and Cheryl might spell me for a while to go and see them. We worked hard, but it was a good life and not untypical for someone growing a business. The fire. 4 weeks from ashes. So at this stage, I'd bought the business back from Multi-York. They wanted to go public. They realised that they needed to focus the business a bit more, and they wanted to sell it back to me. I bought it back for whatever at the cost of the stock, etc. They gave me an intercompany loan to buy all the stock and all the rest of it. And I bought it back in a bigger factory now with a few more machines. And I was able to go in there and very quickly turn it around to be profitable again, because it had been losing money and losing money and losing money. I went in there, turned it around, made it profitable. And yeah, it turned out to be a great move, actually. And we were doing well. And then a call came at 4 a.m. in the morning. It was Emma. Her voice was tight with shock. And in those days, it's a house phone, pre-mobile phones by a long way. And she said, "Mark, the factory's burned down." I'd just woken up. I asked her, "What do you mean the factory's burned down?" She said, "It's gone. It's all gone." I threw some clothes on, got in the car and raced down the empty roads. Dread mounting. Some miles before I got there, I could see the orange glow in the sky. And as I drew nearer, countless blue flashing lights. Fire hoses snaking around the ground everywhere. And indeed, the L-shaped factory had been reduced to just a skeleton. The heat was overwhelming and the air was thick with smoke. And you could hear the timber cracking like gunfire. But most of the office block still stood. Smoke was pouring from the roof, and the firemen were dousing it with water, trying to stop it going. And I said to the guy in charge there, I need the paperwork from that office. And I need the computers because they had our cutting lists on. Without them, and they had all our orders, everything was on there. Without them, the chance of saving the business was very small. And I told the guy, I said, without those, 60 men will lose their jobs. And that was how many guys we had by then. He shook his head. No, the roof's about to go. It's too dangerous. I told him, truthfully, I've trained in the Navy for firefighting. I've gone into a ship, or it was a mock-up of a ship where the walls were so hot, if you touched them, you burned your hands, your eyelashes would burn off, etc. You had to cool as you went. We had to keep low, out of the smoke, wear the BA sets, the whole 9 yards, because we didn't have firemen on board. We did it ourselves. I said, look, I'll sign an indemnity. I'll do anything. I'm desperate. And if you don't let me, I'm liable to just make a run for it and try and do it myself. He could see that there was probably no stopping me, and that I was serious, and hopefully that I knew what I was doing. He was brilliant. He got his guys to make a chain. He said, go in, you've got 2 minutes. And I was in there passing down the chain, the computers, the cutting lists, all the paperwork that we needed, down the line by hand. And as I left, the roof began to come in. Went back to the hall. I was smoke stained and pretty exhausted. Cheryl looked at me. Her eyes were full of worry. Will we make it? She asked quietly. We'll be back in a month, I said. And I believed it. That number wasn't a chance. I didn't just go, a month, have a guess. What I did when I was driving back was think to myself, how long can I get away with not delivering to our customers, these retail customers, with their own customers waiting, before I start to lose them as customers? Oh, I can get away with 4 weeks. I knew that it was a cliff, a bloody great mountain actually to climb. But if we dragged it beyond that, customers would start dropping off, and then the business would slowly disappear. So 4 weeks was survival. I wrote a plan. That day, I just said, don't let anyone disturb me. I went to the back office and I made a plan. On day one, that first day, I called Heels, who were our biggest customer other than Multi-York. And I said, we'll be back in 4 weeks. And I remember there was a very lovely lady, Janice was the buying director at the time, and she said, don't be silly, Mark. You'll never be open in 4 weeks. It'll take you 6 months. I said, no, Janice, it will take you 6 months because you'll have a lot of meetings, you'll discuss it, you'll talk about it, and you'll blab on for ages before decisions are made. We're not going to operate like that. And I said, I give you my word, we'll be open in 4 weeks. Now, please give it to me. And she hesitated and said, okay, Mark, we won't go anywhere. We'll give you 4 weeks. Fully, of course, expecting me not to make it. And I called Multi-York and a few other big customers. That evening, I gathered all the staff in the ballroom, the showroom at Scrapby Hall. Their faces were pale with fear. They too thought, that's it, no job. But I spoke from my heart. I said, no one was hurt. You're all on full pay. Your jobs are safe. We'll be back in a month. And I could see the relief ripple through them. I got them back to the hall because sitting at home worrying meant I'd lose some of my skilled men. I got them back to the hall and put them to work, painting, whatever, just stuff to do. There was a lot of work still needed. The hall renovation was still ongoing. It took 3 years altogether. So I just gave them something to do. Day 2, I met the machinery suppliers. I sat them all down very deliberately together in the ballroom. So number one, I wanted them to look at the house and go, oh, wow, this is a really rich guy. Not true. I looked rich because it was a big house, but it wasn't necessarily the case. And then one by one, I called them into what had been like the farm manager's office, which was next to the ballroom. Might actually been the gun room, I believe, in times gone by. And they came in, and I bought them in the order I wanted the machines. And I had 3 alternatives for each class of machine that we needed. And I did a really strict deal on the price, first and foremost, because I could. We were cash buyers. And then I gave them the delivery date. And they spluttered and said, we'll do our best. I said, no, you won't do your best. What you'll do is you'll sign this clause here and now that promises me delivery, and the penalty clauses on it were horrific if they were late. And I said, if you're not prepared to do that, that's fine, because X, Y, and Z is standing outside. I'm going to bring them in. And I'm sure they'll sign it, or at least one of you is going to sign it, and that's fine. I prefer your machine. Yours is the one I really want, but we don't have that choice. We have to have machinery. I intend to be open in 4 weeks, either with your machine or without it. You choose. They get on the phone to the bosses and blah, blah, blah. Every single one of them signed the penalty clause. Every single machine turned up. Day 3, shook hands on a new factory, which I knew had been empty and for sale for a while. My solicitor was brilliant. Pretty well everyone we met during the process was so helpful. He went down there, he met the owner. I was busy still organising all the stuff. I spoke to them on the phone as they were doing it. We shook hands on the deal. We were in that factory, I think, a week later. A hugely quick completion, and I could get the guys inside, preparing it, painting the floor, get the electricians in to get the electrical wires where we needed them. We had a big woodworking factory, has a massive extraction plant. We had to get started on that immediately. And you have a massive compressor and compressed air lines, because a lot of your tools use compressed air. And of course, you've got a lot of 3-phase, so you need to get your electricians in really quickly. So those things needed to happen before the machines came. So there was a lot to do. And at that stage, we had CNCs and very, very fancy sanding machines that could sand to 0.002 of a millimeter tolerance. And 4-sided planers, multiple spindle moulders, you name it. We were, if you've got a woodworking factory with more than 60 guys in it, you need a lot of machinery. And we needed a lot to compete with China, which was just beginning to come in, and IKEA likewise. And China was at that time at 50 pence an hour. We were paying £13.50 an hour, which is a lot more than 50 pence. So we needed to keep the labour down as much as we could. And it was very high-end furniture, but it still wasn't immune from that sort of competition. And then on day 3, my general manager, lovely man, John, sat with me with coffee in hand, and he said, Mark, I just wanted 5 minutes with you. I know you want to believe you can be open in a month, but I need you to be realistic. He was probably twice my age. A lot of respect for him, still do. He said, it's not possible. I don't know who you're trying to kid. And for a moment I wavered. I did respect him. I had a lot of respect for him. Maybe I was deluding myself. Maybe he was right. But I looked out of the window and I could see the machines running. I could see it all happening. I knew it was bloody difficult. But I turned to him and I said, John, with or without you, I'm going to get this done. Now you can walk out of here, and if you once express a single scintilla of doubt that we're going to get this done, you'll be fighting against me and you'll be gone before your feet touch the ground. I don't want you to go, but I cannot afford any doubt. But I promise you we will get this done, and I need your help to do it. And you can help me to do it. It's your choice. something shifted in him. And from that moment, he became unflappable. He was a brilliant support. The next week, we started to get the first machines arrive. Week 3, all the machines are in. And week 4, full production was restored. The CNC was flashed up. We made I don't have it anymore. We made a plaque with a factory name on, and we had quite a big opening. It was in the press, and we got some of the buyers down. And Janice said to me, "I didn't believe you'd ever do this, Mark." And yeah, it was a really nice feeling. Still is. I enjoyed it. The fact of the matter is, it was a brilliant challenge. Strange. From ashes to output in 28 days. Life lessons. Fear robs the present. Left unchecked, it steals your joy. Truth is much more important than statistics and polish and bullshit. Real numbers matter in business. Basics, black and white. There is no grey. Leadership is lived, not spoken. Shoulder to shoulder with your guys and your girls, raising standards. Family is the reason for it all. Caravan holidays and laughter matter so much more than boardrooms. But I always saw my role as a provider, and in some ways I still do. I'm an old-fashioned guy. And first and foremost, you're there to provide for your family and look after them, protect them. Belief needs urgency. 4 weeks wasn't hope, it was survival. And belief and passion and commitment, those are very, very, very powerful tools. Courage is contagious. One steady voice, true voice, can carry the room. Build with your hands. Barns, halls, gardens and factories alike. That's where the satisfaction lies. And choose forward motion. Mad or brave. Progress belongs to those who walk into the fire and rebuild. Thanks for listening.